Thomas, 3 years ago, you started Vessel after millions of dollars raised and quite a journey. Can you just tell us what is it all about? One platform for all your investor relation needs. What is it?
Yes. So when you fundraise from investors, as you build your firm in private markets, you need to be able, one, to tailor your messaging and your experience to every type of investors. Two, you need to have a digital extension of your brand. And three, you need to automate as much as you can the grunt work. So if there's one thing that summarizes what Vessel is about, it's fundraising investor relations today is 80% grunt work, 20% relationship building. In the next 2, 3 years, that ratio is going to flip. And Vessel is working towards automating most of the grunt work so GPs can focus on building relationships with their LPs.
And was that because something you've experienced in Innovia that you thought, you know what, today I'm spending so much time on this manual work, and you went from being a employee at Innovia to having them as your clients?
Yes, and investors as well. And the exactly. So because you have a team, you build a team with very talented people who work very hard, and at the end of the day, what happens is LPs commit to a fund. Every LP has access to high-performing firms with great returns, but decisions are made on a lot of criteria, and returns are just one criteria. So when you go into a fundraising process, you need to prepare a lot of information so LPs can learn about your firm, get the full story, so they can make an educated decision on whether or not they want to partner with you. So what I saw at Inovia was we had a great team, and we would spend time with LPs. But what was kind of the biggest bottlenecks were data cleaning and unifying the data to be able to use it. Two was preparing the information with the data, and three was just planning a roadshow or a process, getting meetings in the books. And four, you have this great team with great people. And then once you start kind of sharing information, you enter the digital world, and LPs have a kind of clunky experience. You don't know if the data room works, they don't know if it works. And any friction in that process can just cause the LP to engage less or disengage totally and decide to focus on other relationships. So what we've built is a system that enables you to kind of automate all that. So you can spend more time with your LPs, sharing insights, sharing potential opportunities. So that's how we thought about it.
So, talk to me a bit about the technology used in that industry. For people who are not familiar, who are not insiders, do you feel like, because right now, with all the talk about AI and the huge technological transformation, do you feel like they were late into the game? Is that why you see this huge opportunity right now?
Yes, I think in our industry, it's very paradoxical because on one end, you have investors looking for the new technologies, the new products, the new trends. And on the other hand, you have the rest of the investment firm who's sometimes stuck in, 20 years ago using systems that are not even, UX friendly or UI friendly. And I think there's a fear of maybe change sometimes or just habits. And so what we see today when we talk to GPs that we have two types of GPs. You have one type that is they see their firm as a kind of running a Formula One team, and any advantage that they can get, they will try to get it. So they will try new product, new processes. They'll hire great people. And these GPs, those are mostly the GPs we work with. And then you have the other type of GPs that are like still like focused on their habits and their processes and have that mindset of if it's not broken, don't fix it. But that's not going to hold up in the AI age, where you need to rethink every process. And the LP experience is at the core of the growth of private markets. Returns were very important in the 2000. That was enough to get you to raise a fund. And it was about like what's your differentiation in 2010s. And in 2020, like these things are taken for granted. So now it's what's your LP experience? And so you need to differentiate on the LP experience. And some GPs understand that very well. Some other GPs maybe less, but like for any market, you'll have laggers and they'll have to catch up. And that's why we're here.
Can you define a bit the role of the GP and an LP? I mean, you're an industry insider. You know exactly what you're talking about. But for people who aren't necessarily familiar with that lingo.
Yes, I think so. A GP is a fund manager. So think of a VC firm investing in funds. When we say the GP, we mean the fund manager, so the fund investing in companies sometimes. And the LP is the investor in the fund. So the LP is going to commit to a fund for a 10-year period, during which their capital is going to be called every quarter, every year, until their entire commitment has been invested by the GP. Funds are really virtual. Think of them as virtual. They're actually virtual in many ways, which is a fund doesn't exist. No GP, no fund manager has a bank account with $100 million in it. A fund works as you invest in a company, and let's say you're going to make a $10 million investment. You're going to call the capital from your LPs, which means you're going to ask them to send you a wire that's going to get into your bank account so you can send that money to the company. So that's how it works. And it's a very long-term industry because once you commit to a fund, it's a more than 10-year funds close-ended. So you can't sell your commitment. So that's why these decisions are very important.
So the LP has limited control, but they still need to be aware of what's going on. And this is going back to
Exactly.
the reporting that you were talking about that you're helping to automate.
Exactly. So the way it works today for GPs is they get a lot of information from their portfolio companies. They ask when they invest themselves, they ask for sometimes a board seat, information rights. They want to know what's going on in the company. When you're in private equity, they also sometimes control the company, so they can set the rules as well when it comes to reporting. They take all that information, they package that information into their quarterly report, and then they send that quarterly report to LPs every quarter. Some firms have very kind of fleshed out quarterly reports where they're very transparent. Some firms just do the bare minimum. But yes, the work we do more and more with GPs today is automating everything that happens between the time where a company sends them their information, and so the automating all that information that they receive and having all that information packaged like in the way the GPs would for their LPs, with the GP being able, obviously, at any point in time to correct, review, and change anything. But that work takes, tens, if not hundreds of hours per quarter. And that's something that we're starting to automate for more and more GPs.
You know what? I think I finally get it, though. You have your portfolio companies that need to send this data to the GP, that needs to then send reporting to the LPs, and you're actually extracting that data directly from, or you're taking the raw data that the GP is getting from their portfolio companies directly. But
Exactly.
shouldn't it be in like some kind of template or format, or is it standardized in the industry?
So we take the template and the format provided by the GP. In our industry, every we do the same thing, but everyone does it slightly differently, which means that you could say, I'm not going to call capital the capital that you call from your LP. Some GPs will call it capital called. Some other GPs will call it drawdowns. When you invest in a portfolio company, like some GPs will have a full-fledged, a KPI dashboard about how the company is performed. Some other GPs will just share more like a high-level dashboard. So everything is kind of customized. And so the way we work with GPs is we adapt to their level of reporting. We take their templates and we automate. So we basically build it in data ingestion pipeline that takes all the information from the portfolio companies, whether it's an email, a PDF, a spreadsheet, and transform all that data to help them have their KPI dashboards ready, but also any other information they want to share with LPs on portfolio companies. So that process, which is typically very painful, becomes very efficient.
Tomorrow, are you doing this because it's time consuming and you've seen it yourself that fine, it used to take so many hours, automating it will become quicker? Or there's also the aspect of minimizing human error.
Both, actually. On the the problem is when you do it manually, um, it's not that it's not well done. It's just like you're going to spend a lot of time reviewing. When you have new team members, you need to train them to make sure they don't make the mistakes. If there's a mistake, it looks poorly on you. So, would you want to spend your time entering data manually and like spend all your energy on your focus on that, or do you want to spend all your energy and focus on reviewing that data? And so that's where kind of the work is shifting, reviewing the data and also deriving insights from the data. Because your LPs, of course, they want data, but what's most important to them is getting insights from what you do. Are they learning from you? Do they feel like your companies are performing? And so providing data is obviously a must-have, but what's the GPs are really appreciated by LPs are the ones who can provide insights. And so in that process, as I said before, there's really two parts. One is being able to really understand the work and working very closely with the GPs so they can focus on bringing insights to their LPs.
Thomas, you all obviously understand the industry inside out, and you've worked in it, but building a company has its own challenges. I mean, I assume that hiring people, um, dealing with the legal and expansion and talking to clients, being the salesperson, I mean, it's very different than what you used to do. I mean, even if you understand the value you bring on the table, do you feel like you had a learning curve in building the company?
Yeah, I think I had the skill set to fundraise. I was very good at fundraising, but I had never sold technology products or solutions to GPs, and it's totally different. There's ways where it's very different. There's ways where it's totally different. What's totally different is when GPs make decisions, what's really important is yes, the vision is important. Yes, the roadmap is important, but the key question is, do you solve my problem today? And that's a key question across all industries, and we see the same thing here. But in many ways, it's also similar to fundraising because you need to find the criteria that are important to the GPs when they make a decision, when they choose a partner. And so it's very similar. And it's also, when you do go to market, understanding with which GPs you want to spend time versus GPs that maybe will suck up your time and will not are not serious maybe about making a decision. And you see the same thing when it comes to fundraising for your company or for a fund. So yeah, I had a big learning curve, and I think it's a good thing as well because there's like things have changed, and so it's very humbling as well to kind of start over, and that's something I really enjoyed as well, and I would do that again for sure.
I want to ask you this. You said that you were good at investing, sorry, you were good at raising funds, but you were new at being a salesperson.
Yeah.
So for all the different entrepreneurs that are watching right now, what would you tell them about raising funds? Because this is a common topic that comes up so often about people not knowing where to start, especially first-time entrepreneurs. They're not really sure how to navigate this world. What would you tell
Yes. I think it's a world that is very binary, so first you have to be ready for that. It's either for some GPs, they love for some funds, they love what you do, and they invest and they get it, and it's so easy and so smooth. And for some funds, it's like what you do has zero interest, and they believe that you won't succeed or that what you work on doesn't matter. And so you have to be ready for this, emotionally speaking, because there's a lot of rejection. Even the when you look at today, like companies like Uber, Airbnb, they went through so many rounds of rejection. It was so hard for them, and today they're $100 billion+ companies. So you have to be comfortable with rejection and take that as a learning opportunity. And then when you talk to VCs, I think what's important is really trying to understand, do they get what you're trying to do? Is that of interest to them? Some firms have a thesis, some firms don't. So you need to kind of understand that part better. And three, I think, is how do you get in touch with VCs is also an important part. And I think the best way to get in touch with VCs is through entrepreneurs. There's the best intro you can get to a VC is from an entrepreneur they really respect, and they back or they would back again. And so figuring that go to market, so to speak, is very important as well.
millions of dollars raised? quite successful, past employer, now client and investor. Thomas, what are you looking? What's the next big milestone for you? What are the next big steps for Vessel?
For us, we've reached a stage where we know our product works and GPs, it makes a huge difference in their success with their LPs. So it's a high ROI product. Um, Now, we work with roughly 40 GPs globally. Our goal is we want to work with every GP in the industry. So that's where we want to go. We have a big roadmap, a big vision where we think private markets will follow the same patterns as public markets. So private markets will get digitized. If you today you share information through a clunky data room, that will totally disappear. LPs want data-rich experiences where they can get insights. So we're building this future, and we want to enable the future of private markets. So that's where we want to go. So it's a 10-year vision for us.
Thomas, it's always interesting to talk with someone from an industry that you know nothing about. And I think that was an eye-opening conversation. So thank you so much for doing this.
Of course. Thank you, Antoine.